A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark, chapter 15, Jesus before Pilate. And at once in the morning, the chief priests, together with the elders and scribes and the rest of the assembly, having prepared a plan and bound Jesus, took him off and handed him over to Pilate. Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He replied, "You say so." And the chief priests brought many accusations against him. Pilate questioned him again. "Do you make no reply at all? See how many accusations they are bringing against you." But Jesus made no further reply, so that Pilate was amazed. At festival time, Pilate used to release a prisoner for them, anyone they asked for. Now someone called Barabbas was then in prison with the rebels who had committed murder during the uprising. When the crowd went up and began to ask Pilate to do the customary favor for them, Pilate answered them, "Do you want me to release for you the King of the Jews?" For he realized that it was out of spite that the chief priests had handed Jesus over. The chief priests, however, stirred up the crowd so that he should release Barabbas for them instead. Then Pilate spoke to them again. "What then am I to do with the man you call King of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him!" Pilate asked them, "What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him!" So Pilate, anxious to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas for them, and after having Jesus scourged, handed him over to be crucified. Jesus crowned with thorns. The soldiers led him away to the inner part of the palace, that is, the praetorium, and called the whole cohort together. They clothed him in purple, twisted some thorns into a crown, and put it on him. And they began saluting him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They struck his head with a reed and spat on him, and kneeling down, they worshipped him. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple, dressed him in his own clothes, and led him out to crucify him. The way of the cross. They enlisted a passerby, Simon of Cyrene, father of Alexander and Rufus, who was coming from the country to carry his cross. They brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. The word of the Lord. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark, chapter 15, part 2, the crucifixion. They offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. Then they crucified him and shared out his clothes by casting lots to decide what each should take. It was mid-morning when they crucified him. The inscription of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." And they crucified 2 bandits with him, one on his right and one on his left. The passers-by jeered at him, shaking their heads and saying, "Aha! You who destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross." The chief priests and the scribes mocked him among themselves in the same way, saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down from the cross now, so that we may see it and believe." Those who were crucified with him also taunted him. The death of Jesus. When noon came, there was darkness over the whole land until mid-afternoon. And at that time, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard, they said, "Listen, he is calling Elisha." And someone ran and soaked a sponge in vinegar and putting it on a stick, gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let us see if Elisha comes to take him down." But Jesus let out a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The centurion who was standing opposite him, seeing that he had breathed his last, said, "In truth, this man was Son of God." The women on Calvary. There were some women watching from a distance. Among them were Mary of Magdala, Mary who was the mother of James the younger, and Josette, and Salome. These used to follow him and look after him when he was in Galilee. And many other women were there who had come up to Jerusalem with him. The burial. Now, as soon as evening came, since it was preparation day, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the council who was himself awaiting the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Pilate, surprised if he was already dead, summoned the centurion and asked if he had been long dead. Having been assured of this by the centurion, he granted the corpse to Joseph. Joseph bought a linen cloth and, taking him down from the cross, wrapped him in the shroud, laid him in a tomb which had been hewn out of the rock, and rolled a stone against the doorway of the tomb. Mary of Magdala and Mary, the mother of Josette, were watching where he was laid. The word of the Lord.